My upcoming book is called Dress Codes, Crimes of Fashion and Laws of Attire. So one of the reasons I got interested in this project was because of my work dealing with employment discrimination. It's striking the number of employment discrimination cases that involve, in one way or another, a dress code or a grooming code. For instance, a Reno, Nevada bartender named Darlene Jesperson had worked at a casino for many years. Everything was fine, but the employer then decided to change the dress code to require all employees to meet what was called a personal best standard. And for women, the personal best standard required full makeup and teased hair. Now, Ms. Jesperson didn't ever wear makeup. She found it made her feel ridiculous, and eventually she lost her job as a result of this policy and sued the employer in federal court for sex discrimination. Now, in that case, she lost. It turned out that based on a long line of cases, employers are entitled to have different dress codes for men and women, provided they're not demeaning or impose unequal burdens. Other areas, of course, where dress codes arise in the employment context involve religion. So religious employees who wear a particular type of garment as part of their religious practice. Some others involve race discrimination. So for instance, an employer that forbids a hairstyle that's commonly worn by African Americans, like dreadlocks. Again, the employees usually lose these cases. Provided there was no evidence of discriminatory intent, the dress code was valid. One of the most fascinating things I've discovered in my study of dress codes is the way they're both designed to regulate people's attire, regulate people's behavior, but they're also designed to assign meaning to attire. The focus of my book and the place where they really began to proliferate was about in 1300 in Europe. You started to see a real explosion of laws that regulated the attire and also other consumption of luxury goods and restricted those things to the elite. The idea was that you could look at somebody and by what they were wearing, you would know whether they were a knight of the garter or a lord or a judge or a member of the nobility. And so people who didn't have that status were prohibited from wearing particular types of clothing. That from the earlier laws in the late Middle Ages forward to today, the proliferation and the intensity with which dress codes were enforced seemed to respond to moments of social upheaval, times when people weren't quite sure where they stood in some social ordering. Now, we live today in a context in which we have lots of social upheaval in various ways. And again, a technological change in which social roles are unsettled. Social roles involving sex and gender are also, of course, famously unsettled. So I think it's not an accident that we're starting to see a lot more disputes with respect to dress codes. Because part of what people are trying to do with dress codes is understand the world around them, to ensure that a particular type of attire in fact has the meaning that it's expected to have. So one thing that dress codes are doing is making sure that when I see somebody wearing a particular type of garment, that garment's communicating something predictable to me. But what's happening in our society increasingly is that that's not true. Clothing is being worn in a whole range of ways. It's being worn ironically. It's being worn in resistance to its conventional meaning. And so although our society is increasingly casual, at the same time, I think there's increasing anxiety about self-presentation and about what people are communicating through their clothing when we encounter them.